There are certifications.
Okay.
But unlike IT, let's say cybersecurity, where it's CompTIA, you got a Network Plus, or you got to have a Security Plus. There's no UX cert that says, I have this industry knowledge and I can perform at this level. The only thing that you have is your portfolio.
That sounds like a lot of opportunity.
It's a lot of opportunity for it. So, and that means, is what I'm saying, like,
it's like tape. I like tape.
Yeah. Like if you highlight tape, it's like,
you can't get no certified I'm a tight end degree.
Yeah, exactly. The best highlight tapes is not the ones that scoring every touchdown, essentially, right? But the best highlight tapes I see college coaches really gravitate towards is that, like, let's say you're a tight end. Could you block?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Could you catch?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Could you run block? Could you pass block? Showing that this is what I've done since I got in varsity my sophomore year to my senior year.
Yeah.
So it's really accumulation of all your work, and that's what's really going to, like I say, get you a seat at the table.
What's going on, people? This is Nigel.
This is Brad.
And this is the Uplift Fitness Club podcast.
Self-talk.
Self-talk, bro.
Self-talk.
That boy said he's self-taught himself. UX. That's crazy.
Where you from originally?
I'm from Prince George's County, so
All
from
this
the crib.
Talk comes from
Hey, from the crib, boy.
yeah. Yeah, so I grew up in Oxon Hill. Still live in Oxon Hill right now. Hopefully I get the fuck out soon. And so yeah, I'm from the area.
Okay. So, all right. So first of all, we gotta introduce you. Nobody know who they talking to unless they know you. So you could, matter of fact, you introduce yourself, bro. I don't want to give the people, you know what I'm saying, the wrong. I be rapping, bro. So
no problem. So yeah, my name is Isahq Rana. As I stated before, I'm from Prince George's County, Oxon Hills to be specific. Born and raised there. I attended school at Morgan State for 2 years. Then I went to UMBC. That's where I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. After school, man, I was just doing a lot of gig stuff, from like catering, cooking, and hustling. I was a substitute teacher. I was coaching. I was doing sports writing. We got a family business that I work close with my dad since he's a little older.
Okay.
Just doing like anything I can to stay like active, and at the same time trying to figure out what I'm going to do long term. So I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I'm like, all right, I just hate my job and want to do all that, all that stuff. So just really taking my time to see what's out there, and then once I figured it out, just put my best foot forward, really.
So figuring it out, how did you get exposed to UX, right?
Yeah. So right now I'm a UX designer for a startup called Bell Artificial Intelligence.
Okay.
I knew I didn't want to do anything psych related or like clinical. I thought about like going to PT school, stuff like that, but I was like, I really don't feel like taking the courses and doing the science classes and stuff. So I was like, I want to get into tech. So just researching like, stuff, how to get into tech and, just stuff like that. And it was a lot of Google searches, a lot of YouTube, just talking to people. So first I just started to look at like stuff like networking, cybersecurity, right? And it really didn't fit my personality as much, you know what I'm saying? Because I like to be creative. I felt like a lot of those technical jobs don't have that type of stuff, right? So from there, I was like, all right, so how could I leverage my psych background and like, things that I'm like really good at.
Right.
And then, someone told me about user experience, and I'm like, what's that? And they was telling me, and I was like, this is like what graphic design or like, web development. And it was like, some aspects to it, but like, it's much more than that, So like, he was like, you use a lot of your psychology background, and I was like, man, that's perfect, because when you hear people, they say they study psych, usually they don't use it unless they like a psychologist or like something like that. So I was like, man, it's good. Like I can use my social science skills and also get into tech like I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just started learning the different disciplines of user experience. Like I told you, it's a discipline. It's things like being able to interview, interviewing users or stakeholders, doing things like competitive analysis, and there's a lot of human factors aspects to it. So, and then of course you have things like graphic design and typography, colorography, and then finding ways to communicate using whatever you're designing. So more often than not, like user experience is designing digital experience, web experiences, mobile, a kiosk, or your Apple Watch. Those are a lot of things that we design, but you can also things like product design and designing different services or business strategy. You design the way that people operate within the business. So you take a lot of those principles, and you can really use it towards like different institutions. So a lot of times when I tell people I'm a designer, they like more often than not you think of like the end product or what does something look like, but design is also a process, and like how do you get to that end solution is a reflection of a lot of those different things. So at the end of it, you get an experience from a user. So that's what essentially user experience is. So like you create an experience through like this a long process. And
so when did you, or why did you choose psych, like for undergrad? What went into that decision?
So when I studied psych, it was for the reason like I wanted to work in, like I said, I wanted to work in the rehabilitation field, and it was more so specific to like people with like traumatic brain injuries or like stroke, stuff like that. Or if it was the case of working as an occupational therapist, it was going to be with children with learning disabilities, children with autism or adults with autism. So yeah, that was the reason behind it, to get the aspect, to be well knowledgeable of the brain, to understand like how different people learn, different forms of motivation, stuff like that. I thought it was pretty interesting, and I thought it was going to equip me with like a lot of skills. If I wasn't to go into rehabilitation, it was going to equip me with skills that could be used in like a lot of different disciplines.
Right, like you're learning people, like human psychology.
Yeah, human psychology. I learned a lot of things. So like human psychology, things like forensic psychology, education, child development and learning, people psychology. So there's a lot of different, as you see, there's a lot of different like avenues you could go. You can go through like, if you want to be a forensic psychologist, that's pretty cool, right? Like if you want to become an educator, all those type of things.
Okay. So you said you initially got into it because you wanted to do like rehabilitative work. Right. So now you're in UX.
Right.
But you have this psych background and you have like a passion for rehabilitation.
Right.
So where does that tie in, if at all, with what you're doing now? Like, do you still feel a calling to help people, in that aspect?
Yeah, no doubt. Because so the work we do at Bell, we have different artificial intelligence across agriculture, skin, and defense. Mostly I work on the skin projects, and we have applications that could detect, severity of acne, psoriasis, skin cancer, etc. Right? So I still feel as if I'm still helping people in some regards, right? Because I mean, if you got some bad acne, or like you got psoriasis, or you got skin cancer, and especially if it's things visible like on your skin, like say if you have really bad eczema. I had bad eczema, and sometimes like when I was younger, I was self-conscious like going to the pool.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Or like people with bad acne, that's on their face. So I still feel like I'm helping people in some regards in that aspect, and I feel like the work is very ethical. So I'm still helping people with like the challenges that they have, and figuring out how can I design these applications to really just help people, and also at the same time like assist clinicians with their work as well.
So that's huge because like what you're talking about is not necessarily, you remember when we was coming up, bro, Proactive?
Yeah.
Bro,
Exactly.
Proactive hit the market, but that joint hit like crack.
Yeah, it did.
I remember everybody had the Proactive kit, they had the kiosks in the mall, but it was like one size fits all.
Yes.
And they had their individual products that you could buy if you like one more than the other. But what you're talking about is like diagnosis, right? And then specific, I guess, remedies for whatever they're diagnosing you with.
Yeah. So what we do is we don't quite diagnose because it's kind of tricky to use diagnose, but
Gotcha. Okay.
but we analyze your skin, and from there we give you, yes, we recommend
Gotcha.
a product. We recommend products. Then we create a routine that's curated based off the analysis that we give you, or the severity of your acne, or the severity of your psoriasis, or skin. And eventually, if we go in the realms of skin cancer, then we'll be able to diagnose.
Okay.
But that will be with the help and assistance of a clinician,
Right.
dermatologists and stuff like that. So so right now we can like analyze and recommend different solutions.
So with the UX, right, for the Uplift community,
Right.
if I wanted to get started today, run me through a 10-step, 5-step process
Okay.
of how we get started.
Hey man, you getting good, man. That's a good question, man.
That's a good question. So user experience is one of the, just to back in, one of the fastest growing careers in the United States. It's one of the best paying, I can say, and it's also has the lowest the barrier for entry, which is a good thing for a lot of people. What I'll recommend is learning. There's a few things. Learn an introduction of psychology. I know a lot of people that I spoke to and that I know who are designers. They come from a technical background, and they lack a lot of the soft skills that you really need to be a great designer. So learn things like the introduction of psychology. You can just learn psychology anywhere, right? The next thing I'll say is a few books that I'll recommend is something like it's called The Design of Everyday Things. I don't know quite who the author is.
It's the design of everything.
The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman.
Okay.
And this will basically give you an introduction of what entitles a good product and a bad product, and it's not necessarily we talking about digital means, right? We're talking about anything. For example, in this book, it was a great example, and this is sort of what clicked for me. You ever approach a door and you don't know if you should pull or push it?
Man, the doors
This door
in
right here.
this room right here, but he been living
I
here
still
for
can't
6
figure it
months.
out.
Exactly. So,
Bro, I was standing outside the elevator. I pulled that joint 3, pushed it, pulled it. I was locked out though.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But go ahead though. Man.
So that's a great example of bad UX, right? So, and what that means is like when we create a product, if it's physical or if it's digitally, we want to create. This is the psychological component. You want to create things that doesn't promotes human error. Like it's not your fault that you don't know if you should pull or push it. The way that these doorknobs are designed should tell you by the way that they're made, right? If you should push it or pull it, right? So if it's ambiguous, then like that's a bad experience, and it promotes human error. So that's why I say the first thing is to learn psychology, because you want to know how people perceive things, and once you know how people perceive things, you're able to design things to communicate effectively. Right? So those two things are. I will also join like a local meetup. So go to like meetup.com, whatever city you in, just type in user experience. I went to a lot of different meetups like 3 years ago. I went to one like every month, network and talk to people. And then you'll start to understand what the field, what are people thinking, what are like sort of the standards for design. And networking is very important because, like I said, there's such a low barrier for entry. Your network will be essentially the best thing, right? Mm-hmm. So after that, I will continue to like read blogs. I like medium.com. You can access a lot of articles there. And then the most important thing that I'll say that goes for a designer is figure out what type of designer you want to be. You want to be a researcher. So the UX researcher, they talk to users and essentially get feedback from the users at large. You can be an interaction designer, which is basically you design whatever is there. You can be a product designer. So figure out what discipline. And then lastly, based off that discipline, figure out the necessary tools. So one of the best tools out now is called Figma. It's free and it's open source. It's collaborative too, and there's a community aspect. So like essentially, you can design faster.
Okay, this is a platform that you can go to learn your soft skills and still communicate with the community to share ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
tough.
There's a community at large. So this is I'm showing you guys a community feed now. So if I need icons, I go here, grab the icons I need, go there. If I want to do like mobile design, there's like a wireframe kit. So what we do is we start with hand sketches, we test it, low fidelity, which is like something that's not as polished, test it, and then you gradually make things in stages. So that way you don't waste your time, doing tedious work and it doesn't work. So
right, you don't get to the finish line.
You always want to talk to users.
Right.
And, so yeah, there's a lot of different. The good thing about the design community is that people aren't selfish with their work. So it's people share their work. They share like, hey, if you design something, like for example, this is an e-commerce template, like use it. You know what I'm saying? So people are very sharing and like giving in this field, and it's pretty good because and another thing is it's such an early discipline. Some of the earliest people who hold the title user experience designer for companies like Apple are still alive, and they still hold conferences. So there's someone by the name of Nielsen Norman. He has a lot of books that I would recommend reading. He also have a website. Follow him on LinkedIn. They have like short videos, and just like really just start to immerse yourself in the field. And then from there, just like, and then once you start learning these tools, I would recommend just like going to your favorite website and design it.
That's, bruh.
Just go to your favorite website, use the tools, and just design it like that.
That's tough, bro. Cause like I'm thinking from a producer aspect. I'll be making beats.
Right.
So like every beat you ever seen on a video, I'll be making them joints.
Yeah.
And it's like all with the end in mind of like, honing in on your skills. Like I'll listen to something from 2 years ago, like, man, it sounds trash. Mm-hmm. I could do it better like this.
Exactly.
So you basically telling them like the same thing as producing, like recreate.
Yes.
That's
because we're not making nothing new. We just reinventing the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even like you said, like there's a beat that you heard a few years ago. Maybe it's like the snaring, what you want it to be. So you change it up, and that way, and then that's essentially what we do. It's a copycat world, really. So if I want to create like an e-commerce website, I go to my favorite e-commerce and just replicate it, and then just change things. And from there, what I would do is the biggest thing anybody can have, whether you're a producer or anything, like, is have a portfolio. So all your work over time, if you can communicate, this is where I started, and this is where I am, and this is where I hope to be. Like I see more often than not, this is what's going to give you interviews. This was essentially going to get you your first internship. And then after that, it's like, before you know, you'll be a designer.
So if I'm, let's say I'm 21 years old, right?
Right.
Maybe not quite done with college, or maybe I never started college, and I wanted to self-teach myself UX. What's a realistic timeline from day one to now I could actually apply for jobs?
It depends on how much you put in a weekly. I would say if you're at the age of 21 and you spend 3 hours a day, hypothetically, especially at the age of 21, this is like, let's say
they got a lot of time.
They got a lot of
Ain't
time.
got nothing to do.
They got a lot of time.
Ain't got no job.
That in the case, let's say hypothetically they either still in school or they're graduating.
Right.
If you spend 3 hours a day for 6 months, and you let's say you, like I say, you start to do things like learn a tool. Let's say you recreate 2 of your favorite websites based off that tool, and then let's say, all right, you start to learn how to do user interviews. You know how to figure out what's a problem that people have that you want to design.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The first thing is like figuring out what do people need. Like a lot of times, people want to start a business or they want to start a website, and there's no need for it.
Right.
So figuring out what the need is, and then you start to show an employer or someone like, hey, I figure out this need. I'm starting to talk to different users who I think that will use this app or website. This is the propositions that they will have. These are the business goals. This is and that. This is what competitors are doing. These are some sketches that
so
I
you're basically
think
talking about like a business plan, more or less.
essentially a lot of, because let's be real, like 20, 30 years ago, a lot of businesses were running from brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
Business now is from a website.
Right.
So essentially, we're doing a lot of business strategy too. So if you can, there's a lot of plans out there too, different templates, etc. But if you can demonstrate those 2 things on a portfolio, like I know how to redesign and then I know how to go through this process on my own, it can take you 6 months and you can get an internship.
Yeah.
And like I said, like if you can demonstrate that you know more than just like graphic design, and that you know these different processes under user experience, you know, companies will like give you internship. KPMG, Accenture, you know, there's a lot of startups, like especially in DC, there's a lot of people looking to hire user experience designers and interns at that. A lot of interns.
That's what we've seen a commonality like between anybody we talk to. Like 6 months is kind of like that's the number that keep coming up. Like just a little bit of dedication, 6 to 9 months, maybe 9 months.
Yeah.
And you could get a call or like you could get a client depending on where you at. So, I mean, it just speaks to like you got hustle.
Yeah.
And you wasn't even 21, no job, nothing to do.
I wasn't 21. I was 24, going on 25.
And balancing this with what, work?
Yeah, with work, run like the family business and like any other things I was doing. You know, all it really takes is a couple hours a day for real.
So we talked about 21. You know, put 6 months of hard work in. This is part time. This ain't even a full. Brad went kind of crazy. So, Brad, you gotta tell him a little bit of your journey, cause it's a little different. It ain't 3 hours. Maybe more. Tell me how many hours a day you was doing.
So I had also had a self-study journey as well. My time spent was like a 4 month. I was working full time. I get off from work, have a dinner, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
He don't eat. I ain't never seen it.
And I used to go straight to the library, and study for the rest of the evening. So like 5 to 9 whenever it closed, and sometimes get home 5 to 10, 11, whatever. It was around like 5 hours a day during the week, and weekends. Just like you said, you gotta immerse yourself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Google, look up, watch videos.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's really fake it till you make it for real.
Yeah.
You gotta put yourself in the mindset like,
yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm a designer.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
sure.
I even like made a I don't even use this Gmail, but I made a Gmail like IT. I named it
IT Lowry.
Right? Yeah, IT Lowry. I wasn't even in the field.
yeah.
Nah, man, that's huge. That's huge. Just claiming it before you actually have it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get stuck in perfecting things, or getting the experience. Like, it's that loop. You know, they always talk about you graduate college, all the jobs looking for experience, nobody got experience.
Exactly.
But how do you articulate it in a way that it seems like you do have the experience?
Yeah, so that's a great example.
You mentioned portfolio.
For sure.
So with UX portfolio, would you rank that as number one, or is there like certifications you can get as well to kind of show?
That would be number one, because there's no certifications, like
You said it's what?
There's no certifications for UX.
You said there's no.
There are certifications.
Okay.
But unlike IT, let's say cybersecurity, where it's CompTIA, you got a Network Plus, or you got to have a Security Plus. There's no UX cert that says I have this industry knowledge and I can perform at this level. The only thing that you have is your portfolio.
That sounds like a lot of opportunity.
It's a lot of opportunity for it. So, and that means, this is what I'm saying, like,
it's like tape. I like tape.
Yeah. Like, if you highlight tape, it's like,
you can't get no certified I'm a tight end degree.
Yeah, exactly. The best highlight tapes is not the ones that score an every touchdown, essentially, right? But the best highlight tapes I see college coaches really gravitate towards is that, like, let's say you're a tight end. Could you block?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Could you catch?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Could you run block? Could you pass block? Showing that this is what I've done since I got in varsity my sophomore year to my senior year.
Yeah.
So it's really accumulation of all your work, and that's what's really going to, like I say, get you at a seat at the table.
Right. So we talking about one of the fastest growing industries or fields in the U.S. or maybe the world. We can say the world, right? We're gonna cite the world because we got some young people that might be listening. We're gonna just say it's the world, right?
Right.
And it's a very low barrier. You keep saying that, a very low barrier to entry.
Yes.
So let's put on the table, like, what can a person expect to make? Let's say we've been working on our portfolio for a year. We done built 5 to 10 websites. You know, we real sharp with our skills. We doing interviews in the field, like everything you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What can we expect to maybe see at like an entry level position salary?
Okay. So there's two things. So one, I just looked it up, right? So according to CNN Money, UX is ranked number 14th with top paying, as far as top paying, and a growth rate of 18% year over year.
Well, that's better than the stock market. Well, you can't beat that.
So I can tell you from my experience, like a few years ago, I had maybe 2 portfolio pieces, and I'm just like starting to get interviews. And I had an interview for Amtrak as a user experience intern, and they offered me $32 an hour.
So that's about what, 70?
That's about like 70 something starting off. And I can say in Washington D.C.,
right,
if you let's say you at a profitable business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say you can start off easily at 75,000.
That's sharp.
And then your top 10 paying is usually, and this I would say from the DC area, maybe DC, Baltimore, New York, Los Angeles, and even surprisingly Detroit.
Okay.
You can easily, the mean I would say is like 85, and the top 10 are getting like 120 to 130.
That's tough.
But I don't see any way you're not making less than 70,000 if it's a profitable business.
And this is with your mind.
And this is
using
your
your
portfolio.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there, making a phone call.
And is it like, you could be in high school working on this, right? Like,
you
don't have to
you
wait.
definitely you don't have to wait at all. For high schoolers, I would definitely say learn the tools and understand what the discipline entitles. And there are boot camps. Like I started off self-taught, but then I went to a couple boot camps. And there's one that I went to called Springboard.
Gang.
Boy, I didn't even know you was gonna talk about this. Hey, you came in killing.
So Springboard was pretty good because they have a lot of different disciplines. It's data analytics, they have data science, engineering, they have UX. I took a UX course. I took a UX course. And the good thing about Springboard is you don't have to pay up front. You pay monthly. So it's really at your own pace. Mm-hmm. You have to go through the curriculum. At the end of the curriculum, you have a portfolio piece.
Dang.
Oh,
that's tough.
So then you have an extra. Then you have an extra portfolio piece. Remember.
Baby, look at that.
so remember. The thing is, you gotta to get your seat at the table. 3 solid portfolio pieces, and then 1 that you're going to start on your own. Right. So they take you through the full syllabus. I still have a syllabus.
Website.
I do have a syllabus.
That's something we can send to.
And the thing is, you can keep your login forever. So whatever, no matter when you've done the program, I think as long as you remember your login, you can gain access to it. So let's see if I still got mine. So I still have mine. I took this 3 years ago. So you have a syllabus. Let me see if I can find my syllabus. Yeah, so I went through this curriculum. I ended with my first real portfolio piece.
How long was it?
It took me 4 months.
4 months? Okay.
So 4 months is $500 a month, which is
$2,000.
Like $2,000, but
small investment.
Small investment.
For if you going, you 1/3 of the way to your portfolio being done.
Exactly. Now, let's say if you don't have a college degree, essentially you paying $2,000 for an education. You meet one-on-one with a mentor.
On this?
Weekly check-in. Someone that's in the field working.
Hey, just to let you know, man, my whole family getting ready to get this.
For sure. I got 2-3 people in mind right now.
So let's go through it. So, introduction to UX. They teach you, learn it. It's so dense. Like you go through it, you learn the terms of it. So this is the first week curriculum. What is user experience? User experience is not user interaction. They give you articles, user designers in the field, and then you start learning user-centered design and design thinking. Remember, I was design is a process, right? How do you plan for it? Your research, design, and adaptation. You evaluate, you test your assumptions, and then you develop it. Boy, if you did a freaking science fair project, it's essentially that. You plan, you do research, you formulate your design, you test your hypothesis, you measure it, and then you develop. It's essentially the scientific, but then you go through what is user research, how you do research plans, the techniques. I still refer to some of this stuff now, like usability testing. What is lean UX, content strategy, wireframing, sketching, visual design. You see color theory, and then it's just basically go through the whole.
So it's like you found the playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you pay $2,000, or you could go one route, or you could go on this website, a few months lock in, and now you got a piece for your portfolio. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Bro.
And at the same time, I would say this really takes you about 4 hours a week, just using what I did for Springboard, 4 hours a week to make sure that I had everything within this module completed.
Okay.
And at the same time, the other 4 hours, a couple hours, I was on YouTube practicing on other tools. So essentially, I'm supplementing everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, yeah,
that's kind of how it go. If you really about it, then it just becomes your whole language.
Yeah.
Everything that you're doing it got some component of that. Mm-hmm. Right. But when I was learning the physical education, John, not the physical, the strength and conditioning, John, bro, every conversation I was having had some type of reference to the human body. It was annoying me at some point.
Yeah, but you gotta think in that way, and then you also gotta be able to converse. Mm-hmm. Even though you're not in the field to converse with a colleague or other designers. In my regard, it's fake it until you make it. that's the thing. So
it's a huge platform, man.
Yeah, that's big.
Having a coach, and how often is you?
So you meet with the coach weekly throughout so through that 4-month process, I met with my coach 16, 17 times eventually.
This is what for 20 minutes, hour?
It was for 1 hour. One hour.
That's amazing.
So
1 hour.
1 hour. Hold on. That's how many weeks? Well, that's like $100 an hour. Plus, you getting all the information on top of that.
And that's huge because it keeps that accountability to where the days that you
Right.
maybe struggling,
Absolutely.
the weeks
Yeah,
you
exactly.
may struggle.
And we went over like what I submitted for the previous week, and then we would talk about like what's next. And the great thing about this too, they match you with a mentor based off where your career goals were. So remember what I said before is like you can get in design, but there's different types of designers,
Right.
and like of course there's different disciplines.
Like research.
Research. So like they asked me what I studied, if I had a degree, what I wanted to do, and my mentor, she studied psychology. She was she had a PhD in cognitive psych. She was a researcher, and she was able to help me essentially like, all right, this is what you want to do. I got in this field, like, boo, boo, boo. And then the advice she gave me, YouTube, the meetups, talking to people. And then after a while, you'll essentially find that you are essentially better. I feel like people are self-taught, and people who really immerse themselves in the field before they actually get in it, you see that your ceiling is much higher than like people who's actually working in the positions that you are in. Like I've come across people, I'm like, they ask me how many years I've been designing. I'm like, I've been in for like 3 to 5 years. And they be like, they usually, I seen people portfolio who've been there for 10 to 15 years, and my portfolio is better than theirs. It's like,
I'm rich with I've done a little bit of traveling this year, and I've had some people ask me, man, like, who you went to school at? Who you? How long you been doing this for? Like, man, you kind of young to be coming up in here. Yeah. 2 years strong.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, like my CEO of my business, he called me like last month. He's like, I want you to hire someone to work under you. So now I got somebody working under me, and I'm like the senior designer. I'm like, this is my first gig. I'm like, they're like, we see you more so in like a manager role, and we see you like being like our lead designer moving forward.
So that's amazing. So like when you say you're working with a startup, is there like an equity component?
Yes, so there are equity components. I don't technically have like long-term equity in the company, but the person who referred me, he does have equity in the company, and like I don't see the reason why I wouldn't have it, because essentially like I'm putting their products on the market. They didn't have products when they got there, and like I don't like to, but like you sort of have to compare yourself to the previous person who held the position.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like when I got in, they only had like a splash page or maybe like a login screen. Like we have a fully functional app, and we're developing a website now, and I've been there since January, which is what, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So like I exceeded her work that she did in 8 months. The first week I got there, I threw some screens up. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Just hit it with the saying.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then like outside of design, like I offer more like with strategic alignment, business strategy. Now that we're talking with a large pharmaceutical company, they're gonna have to rely on my design process for implementing it across 2 teams, essentially my team at Bell and then this pharmaceutical company. I won't name them just yet, but like it's a large blue chip pharmaceutical company, and essentially I'll have to work with their designers, their engineers under my scope, and like how I see the products will be implemented throughout this timeline that we'll have. So,
and we already know once you start getting that experience, then your value go up.
Yeah, the value is going to go up from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's crazy, like I'm already like getting pinged from like a lot of different people now. It's like once you get your foot in the door, it's just nobody can take that experience away from you.
Yeah.
One they can't take what you know, or like what you work to get there, as far as us being self-taught. But then once you start getting that working experience, you can't take none of that away. And companies know that, like, they will try to suppress your value for sure.
So we done talked about, bro, you done gave people some clean resources, man. As far as if you just came in and said springboard and then walked out, that'd have been worth it. But you gave them much more than that. So
Nilson, and also I refer to Nilson Norman as like the godfather of UX. Visit the Nilson Norman Group website. They also have conferences and they teach different classes. They're a little bit more expensive, but those are sort of the certification that will hold some weight. And then also there's one that's called, I think it's called UX Foundations, the Interactive Design Foundation. This is sort of like a group that also has like different literature. They also have boot camps and communities to like really immerse yourself in the field. And then YouTube, of course. Udemy have courses on UX to teach you those tools like Adobe XD, Figma, InVision, are sort of the design and prototyping tools that you use. When I say design and prototype, is like you can design like different screens and then prototype it, and it will interact as if it was coded. And if you want to take a step further, if you learn code, if you learn something like Swift UI, which is essentially what iOS devices are designed on, or you learn something like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can essentially design it and then you can also develop. And if you design and develop, then it'll only go up from there. Because essentially now, because like when you go through a product development phase, you have researchers, you have designers, and then you have engineers. The researchers will give the designers their insights, and the designers will design off those insights and hand it off to the engineers to make. But if user experience, you know how to do research, you know how to do design. If you take the extra step and learn how to code, then ain't nobody stopping you.
You got a stranglehold on the game.
Yeah, you got a stranglehold on the game, for real.
So you done gained all this knowledge, man. You got all this knowledge. It sounds like it take a lot of time.
Yeah.
How much time do you have to get into these stocks?
Yeah.
Let's talk about these stocks.
That's what we came for, man.
That's what we came for.
That's what we came for.
Write it down.
You can't wait your whole life to make a change.
Believe in yourself.
Innovate with integrity and intentionality.